I thought I'd just try and film a short footnote to the gearbox and gear selection problems that I had on this machine to begin with when I first tried it out under its own power, which I sadly didn't film. But the best I could do was get first, second and third and a load of neutrals, and it really was a pain and quite difficult to sort out. The upshot was I ended up removing this cover completely, and I also unbolted what I needed to unbolt so that I could move the inner cover outwards by about 1/8 of an inch or so to check and try different gear selector indexing. But it turned out that that was actually correct. I moved it a tooth and it made it worse, so I put it back and checked with photos of other T140s I worked on where I've had the gearboxes in bits, and the indexing on the quadrant was actually right. So I was able to get the inner casing away by just enough distance, just by undoing the screws that hold it to the main engine casing, and I also removed the brake pedal, slackened the big nut behind it a little, removed that one. The other one down there is missing anyway, and I was able to lever it away just enough to move the indexing of the quadrant. Anyway, that turned out to be correct, and I checked and put that back together. Another problem was in here, and I've got an old outer cover here which was among my bits and pieces, and the springs that centralise the mechanism are the springs that were in this machine, and it should be possible to see that in the relaxed position where it's supposed to be centralised, in fact it isn't. It's lopsided. One of the springs was harder than the other one, and it was resetting itself but not quite correctly. It was resetting itself off centre and not catching the next spline or tooth of the quadrant, if you like. So that was another issue which, taking the springs from this one and putting them in there, dealt with. One of these little poles had a blunter looking tooth on it than the other one in here, so these are the ones that were in the spare cover. I tried them in this one. That made matters worse, so I put the originals back in. Then I found that I had 5 gears, but that the gear lever operation was stiff, so out came the hammer, and careful use of the hammer. Basically what I did was, with this cover off, I put a drift in against the end of the gear selector shaft, which passes through to the other side of the engine, and just using a drift, I didn't beat the crap out of it. I gave it a couple of sharp taps, and I also got the gear change shaft from the primary side end and gave it a few taps, and everything freed up and started to work as it should. So it was a combination of quite a few things there really, but nothing was seized, worn or broken, but definitely the springs were out of sync with each other, and I think they were the main culprit possibly. And then after that, this whole mechanism was just a little bit stiff to move, and after I tapped the shaft with a hammer, that seemed to free that up. But as we saw when I rode it, it all worked well. We got all the gears up and down, no problem at all. So that's where I'm leaving it.